So this is, we're now in the after show. I've now set a separate recording up. We've got the other one in the can, as they say. So this is the after show where I really answer any question. It doesn't really have to be about certifications or anything else. It certainly can be, which is fine too. And those pieces, the phone lines are still open for another 43 minutes. The service that I use gives me 2 hours worth a day. And after that, they cut you off. So you got 43 minutes and then there's nothing else that's going on. For those of you that are not watching this live, you're watching on the replay, you can watch on the Saturdays and call in. So in the callers day, that I'm so grateful for getting the calls, because I think it's better for you to talk and tell me what you'd like to know rather than me go through the static information that we have here. Yeah, I'm not going to do a lot of the slides unless some of the topics come up about those pieces. I've got quite a bit of content here. I have another hour's worth of content that I could go through on these slides. So that's not exactly how it's going to work. Nobody's on the phone lines here, so I want to bring those up just so I can watch them a little bit better. Maybe have, how can I watch that? Put this piece over here. There's too many things on my screen. I got a lot of screens here that I'm trying to keep track of. And keep those pieces there. How can I watch the chat and yet watch the call in? We'll do this. There we go. No, that didn't work. Did not work. Need to work in this chat, get all the boxes in the right place. There we go. Move it over some. Now we're good to go. Now I can watch the chat room and watch the other pieces all at the same time. Watch my Skype piece come up. There's a lot going on there. And you can ask questions in the chat room. Absolutely. Ask some questions. We'll go through those pieces as well, and see some of the things you would like to know about. I can certainly do that because now I'm actually able to watch a lot more of those. Yeah, there's a lot of tabs going on there. I can actually read the tabs. So that's how I know that it's not gotten too bad, because I can still see the names that are at the top of the tabs that are on my screen. It's when you can't read any of the words that are in the tabs when you have to be concerned about what you're doing there with your life. I think that's a lot going on. That's when I have to take a break, take a deep breath, have a look at what you're doing, maybe get rid of some of those things. So here's questions coming in the chat room. Oh, this is really a topic of, these are fighting words on this topic. So the question, I'm new to messing around with virtual systems. I was wondering, what is the best client, the virtualization software that you can run on your desktop? Some people say virtual machines from VirtualBox, which is the Oracle VirtualBox, which is what I have on my computer. I'm going to bring it up so you can see this. So I have VirtualBox on my computer with all my virtual machines off to the side. And I can start those up and get them running. And the virtual machine that I'm running right now, I'm running in VirtualBox. I think VirtualBox is great. It runs fine for everything I need it to do. It runs Linux, it runs Windows, it runs Windows 8, it does everything. And I never have a lick of problem with it. It's what I used when I did my Windows 7 course on my website. The 7680 course was all done in VirtualBox. So I'm running on a Mac OS X desktop. So all of my Windows was virtualized. Now, VirtualBox does not include a BIOS. The BIOS type functionality is handled through a settings configuration in VirtualBox. So if you need to configure system information like memory, you want to configure displays or storage data or turn on and off certain ports and network connections, you do it in the VirtualBox configuration. And it's almost identical to this on the Windows side. So it's very similar when you run VirtualBox in Windows versus running VirtualBox on this machine here. So there's no BIOS, except you'll notice in the A+ certification, you have to know how to use the BIOS. So I couldn't use VirtualBox to show the BIOS because there's no BIOS to show. So I also have on my machine, I don't run, I'm running Mac OS X as I mentioned. So there's no free version of virtualization software from VMware. VMware is really the only other really good option, I think. There are others for desktop virtualization, and you can all send me your hate mail about that one, and that's fine. But VMware Fusion is the software that's used on the Mac desktop to be able to do things. If you're running Windows, there's a couple of different versions. There is a free version of VMware Workstation or VMware Player is the free one, and VMware Workstation is one that adds additional functionality. I think snapshots and other things are available there. VMware Player is fantastic as well. In fact, I would say that the VMware products are a bit more polished and in some ways are supported a bit better than the VirtualBox. And that's probably not, here's my VMware Fusion. That's probably not, too far off the mark. You probably can expect that from something that is a product that's a commercial product that is owned and used by so many corporate individuals around the world that companies rely on. They pay money for this. I paid money for my VMware Fusion. If you buy the Workstation version, you'd be paying money for the Workstation version. So there's a bit more of an infrastructure there to get support and bug fixes and support for new operating systems out as quickly as possible. Also runs really fast. So there's a lot of good things to say about the VMware products as well. Both work fine though. So it's really up to more of what would you like to do with it? How do you want to use it? That type of thing. I think there's some pluses and minuses, but they're so minor that you really can't go wrong. That's it. I don't think either of them, Benny, use UEFI on either one of them, and probably for good reason. That's a relatively complex BIOS type startup process to be able to virtualize, and relatively unnecessary in a virtual environment. And VirtualBox, I don't know if it's open source, but it's certainly free. What is the licensing on VirtualBox? I didn't think it was open source. Let's do an about VirtualBox. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm just not aware. It is copyrighted Oracle. I go to the VirtualBox site. Maybe it is still open source, but it's free. So there's your pluses and minuses. I did mean virtualbox.org will take you to the VirtualBox site. It is. It's GNU. So it's not really open source. It is open source, freely available open source. It's the GNU version 2 license, the GPL license. So there you go. Nice update for me to remember that. So if you're somebody who likes to support open source and you're into the open source, you like going into the code and doing things yourself, that's another good example as well to be able to do that. And from Malcolm's perspective, why doesn't CompTIA do more with the Mac? They do talk about iOS and Android, so there's a little bit of other operating systems they apply there. And they used to do an overview of operating systems that you needed to know. You needed to know an overview of Linux and an overview of OS X, but they no longer ask those either as part of the A+. They really focus on Windows. And I think it primarily because, corporately speaking, that is the primary operating system that you'll have people using on their desktops. And the A+ certification is primarily a desktop certification. If you come to the Professor Messer website on any particular day, we can absolutely have a fight, maybe even in the Linux chat room, about which operating system really is used the most in environments today on the internet, in enterprises, in other organizations. We can fight over whether it's Linux, whether it's Windows, and we can fight about the market share for Mac OS X. But OS X has a relatively small market share compared to those other platforms, especially in the enterprise. And since this is an enterprise certification for a desktop, we're going with the large piece there, which is really Windows. And it doesn't seem to be coming off of that. It still primarily is Windows. Even with Windows 8, you have companies that are just now installing Windows 7. So that Windows 7 is going to be here a long time. They went from XP, now they went to 7, another 10 years of 7. So that's what you're going to run into when you're trying to figure out, what should I be doing here from that perspective? What should we be working with? And then I think Linux, obviously I use all of the operating systems. I use Mac OS X on my desktop. I have Windows pieces that I use for the A+ and other certifications. I have Windows devices in my house. And I have extensive Linux infrastructure that I have to maintain my website. So I love all of them. So I don't really have a particular large dog in any particular hunt. I think it just depends on what you want to do, how much money you'd like to spend, how you'd like to do it. A very good example of this is the hosting that I do. I mentioned earlier that I spend over $1,000 a month on hosting. I don't mind spending it because I think that it's from a business perspective, it's a good investment. But all of the hosting that I do is on Linux. So I don't pay for the operating system that I'm using. And I do pay for some of the software that's running on that operating system. The membership software that's on my website, I pay for and maintain. I pay maintenance on that to maintain it because it's good software for me. There's people that are developers that are sitting at a desk somewhere that are actively working on that. I don't mind paying for that, and they give me a great product. But I don't pay for the operating system it runs on. I do pay for the devices that it runs on back at the hosting service, and I pay for the support to maintain that because obviously if anything happens to my site, I want smart people to suddenly go to that machine and see what's going on. So I pay essentially for an IT type infrastructure to be there. I don't own IT people. I don't have IT people. I don't hire IT people. I don't own a department of people. To do that, I hire people that are smart that can do that for me. And I think that's where a lot of people are, a lot of organizations are. You always have that, do I outsource? Do I not outsource? Is it in the cloud? Is it something we have in our data center? A lot of questions to go along those lines. That's if you're trying to figure out why CompTIA is not putting other operating systems on, they're going with Windows because that's just enough as it is. Knowing Windows XP and Vista and 7, that's plenty. They have Linux, so you can go take a Linux certification. So CompTIA is not leaving you out if you want to get Linux certified. And they don't have a Mac certification. You'd have to go to Apple. Really, they're the only ones right now that have certifications on the Apple side. So, oh well. Well, I have review questions from my 220-802 video segment soon, Charles asked. See, I'm scrolling up. I'm answering the questions. Yes, that is just laziness on my part. There's no technical reason. That's in my to-do list of things. For those of you that have watched my videos, after the 801 videos, just underneath them, I guess I could, instead of using my hands to describe it, I could show it to you. I do here on the internet. So if we look at these, I have to get rid of the chat. All the things that are loading there. So if we go to the video, we go to an 801 video, like how to install your BIOS upgrades. One of the things you'll notice is there's the video there, and then right underneath it, I have the start button, and you can take a review test. So I give questions there that you can answer. And I randomize which question comes up first, and I randomize which answer comes up in which order. So it's different for everybody. People said, hey, question 3, answer 2 is wrong. You got that one wrong. I don't know what you're talking about. So you have to be specific. If I get it wrong, I can fix it, but you got to tell me. And so I have all of these afterwards, and you can list out the questions, and you can see which ones are complete, and you can jump from question to question and answer those, and it will tell you whether you get them right or not. I like that. It's kind of a neat thing. I have them for all of my 801 videos, but I don't have them for any of my 802 videos. I just stopped doing them. There's no real reason. I've got the questions ready. I just need to plug them in. And so if you go to an 802 video, like network command line tools, I've got my video there, the transcript is there, but there's no questions there. So that's what he's referring to. And he says, hey, are you gonna, do that? That would be nice if you did. And you're right. It would be nice if I did. And I'm getting to it. It's one of those lists of things. And I want to do it for all of my videos, for not just the 802. I want it for all the Network Plus. I want it for all the Security Plus. I want it for all the Linux Plus. It's a little bit of content writing. So I will get there. We'll get those pieces working with those. It's just a matter of time and getting them done. And, Monday's a holiday. It's President's Day in the United States, and I'm off from one of my jobs that day, so I'll work the other job that day and get that piece there as well. Nice to have those there. Let's see what other questions have come in. Oh, you know what? I haven't checked what happened to my phone lines. Okay, we don't have anybody on hold. I don't want to have somebody on hold and just sitting there. Other questions that have come in. Will Linux replace XP on old systems? Nope. No, it won't. It'll do that on 4. Linux will replace XP on 4 devices. Not just 4 types of devices. I mean 4, period. We don't see people dramatically moving from XP to Linux. Although if there was a better time to do it, this would be it, wouldn't it? You'll lose support and security patches. Why not head over to the Linux side and be able to do that? Or another operating system, a Linux, a laptop, or a tablet platform, or an OS 10, something that would be better. Anything would be better than XP when there's no security patches. That's a real big deal that I don't think a lot of people are understanding. As soon as the first vulnerability, the first exploit hits for the unknown vulnerability in XP that will never be patched, that's it. Everybody's leaving it on the corporate side. I think a lot of people are just sitting there and doing that because malware on the corporate side is an enormous problem. Everywhere I go to now there's an infection somewhere. It's just so easy to get on people's machines. So you want to avoid that as much as possible. The malware infestations are just amazing. They're getting very smart on how they're getting on your machines. They're tricking people. A good example was the Target. The problem with the Target credit card swipes were that stolen information appears to be originally caused by malware targeted emails that were sent to a third-party HVAC, air conditioning, heating, air handling provider of Targets that infected those machines when they clicked a link. And that particular third-party provider, the air conditioning company, didn't have antivirus software on their machines, did not have real-time anti-malware software on their machines. They had Malwarebytes, the free version that they had downloaded and installed on machines, which is not real-time. You have to actively run that to find malware. And even worse, it's not licensed to be used by commercial organizations. So they were even using it in violation of the license. That's just not good. I love Malwarebytes in the chat room. Yes, Malwarebytes. Absolutely. It's fantastic software for removing malware. And it's okay for catching the malware. It's not as good as perhaps other products are. They really focus on removing the malware or scanning and removing the malware. The real-time piece, not quite as good. But that once they got in, they then hopped around, waited to the VPN to connected to Target, got into Target. Turns out Target perhaps didn't put the right security in place. They apparently left links back to the corporate network through there that they were able to sneak around and get back to the corporate network, and the rest is history. This is a bit of a challenge. So Malcolm says, be surprised if any business stayed with XP. You will be surprised. Then you will absolutely be surprised. So yes, so how did the cash register get linked to the HVAC? Now the HVAC company had a VPN link into Target's network to a front end that was only for third-party providers to provide back-end information like invoicing. It wasn't to control the HVAC equipment in the stores. You were not supposed to have any other access to the network other than your connection, your VPN connection, to use that software on the Target side. I mentioned this before, but if you wanted to read about this, you absolutely need to go to KrebsOnSecurity.com, KREBS onsecurity.com, which he has an awesome security website to begin with, but he talks about how that email attack really got going. And he talked to people who used to work at Target that said, yes, the VPN connects you to a box, but there's another way into the back side of that box that's used to administer the access to it. And we think, perhaps, allegedly, that is what the bad guys, once they VPN'd into the software, found a way around the software and into the corporate environment at Target. They believe that's possibly what it could have been. We don't know for sure. Because once they were on the corporate side, ideally, there would be another block there between the corporate side and the cash registers. Apparently not one of those either, or they found a way around it. These massive companies, and Target may or may not be this way. I don't know. Let's just talk broadly about the way these companies are set up. When you get to be that big, and I've seen this in very practical terms, in very big data centers, very large companies, the structure of the company is separated out into very finite pieces. This particular group handles the networking, maybe the switching part of the network. Not networking, the switching. Another group handles the cabling. Another group handles the routing. Another group handles access to the data center. And yet another group handles security. And maybe only security of certain pieces of operating systems or security on the network. You have all these different groups. Maybe there's another group also to monitor all of that have nothing to do with any of the others. So every group has a set of objectives and goals for themselves. And you may have a switching group that has no idea how the routing is set up. You may have a security group that doesn't have direct access to the data center. This, and as crazy as that sounds, that is a real circumstance that I have seen with my own eyes. I'm not saying this third party. This is the way many organizations are set up, just because through the years, that's how the security department evolved and the management structure and all of the politics that goes around with all of those things. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility. And I'm not saying this is what happened with Target. I'm saying allegedly. I'm saying that possibly what could happen is that you have one group that doesn't know what the other groups are doing. They don't understand the structure. They don't know how it's connected. They just assume maybe, well, I'm setting up my local network for the VPN connection. Certainly there's a firewall somewhere protecting that network from the credit cards, so we can set this up. So it's assumptions like that that create problems. And in this particular case, maybe it's not even, maybe a firewall was there, but it was misconfigured. Maybe a firewall was there, but there was a exploit that allowed someone to get around the firewall. You just never know what you run into there. It's quite a challenge to keep these very, very, very big companies secure because of those structural political laws of physics that you run into. I know. It's security not have access to data center. I know. That's rare. That was a rare occasion. Normally, security can go anywhere they want. They can go in any door they want. They can look at any server they want. They can look at any router, switch, whatever they want, generally speaking, or at least we'll work with groups to do that. But the smaller organizations don't tend to run into those problems, interestingly enough, because they're smaller and they talk to each other and they're in the same room and they know everybody, and it's a little bit easier. So Tahir was asking about discount codes for my A+ videos. If you are an active or former U.S. military, I do have discount codes for you. If you are not, unfortunately, I don't have any discount codes right now. Sorry about that. But if someone is looking at my videos or anything that I sell and they are former or active military, send me an email. I'll send you some of those. It's a little bit of a challenge. There's so many places in so many organizations that are a challenge to secure. You got so many different people doing so many different things. It's not unusual for security departments to discover that the networking team has set up a connection. They call and say, hey, we need firewall configured and brand new. Don't know about it. Change control is a big deal. And you do run into those things as well. We got a call from 661. I think we got some time left. Let's see if the 661 area code, are you there, caller?
How's it going?
Hey, there you are. What's your name and your question?
I'm Andy, and I'm actually a high school student. I actually took Cisco Network Academy.
Wow, as a high school student, that's great.
Yep, I just got my certification actually January 20th.
Well, what certification did you get? The Cisco?
The A+ one.
Oh, okay. Great, congratulations.
And I was wondering, since I just got done with my A+, and I graduate in about 2 weeks for high school, what should I go on to?
Oh, good question. There's no single answer. The challenge, there's three things I'll kind of try to step through to see if we can break this out. First, you're ahead of the game. So this is a good thing. In high school, and understanding the technology is so useful. In fact, it's kind of, in some ways, it's kind of bad. I recall when I was in high school, personal computers were just brand new. There was no internet. We were all just trying to figure this thing out. but then you learn it, and there's no application you can put towards it. I couldn't go to work for a corporation with their personal computers. I didn't even have a high school diploma quite yet, and I wanted to go to college and that type of thing. So you may want to think about what you want to do with this technology, because you've got plenty of time to think about how you want to leverage this. Some people want to get into development. They want to build their own applications. They want to do programming. That wasn't my thing. I did do some programming, but I realized, networking was my thing. A lot of people love databases, or they like doing virtualization, or they like these cloud-based technologies. You kind of have to think about what direction you want to go with that. Now, at the same time, you've got the challenge of you're not going to be able to apply these things for another few years, but that's actually a good thing. You're going to go, hopefully, maybe you'll go into college or to a formal degree after high school, and you'll be able to apply the things you know towards the classes you're taking. I went and got a business degree from Florida State. So I was really into computers. I got a job working at Florida State in their computing center. I worked with their mainframes. I worked with their output devices. I was an operator, their tapes and hard drive systems. I worked and understood their supercomputers. It was a lot of fun, but I was taking classes on personnel management, on marketing, on cost accounting. There's very little memory configurations to do in cost accounting class, I have to tell you. But I have a lot of you have a lot of projects you have to do, and if you know how to use the computer, those projects end up looking amazing. So you're still able to leverage a lot of the things you know into working with those pieces. I would say it's sort of like the information I gave the caller before, is you kind of have to turn a mirror on yourself and say, what about this technology interests me? Am I really interested in more of the hardware side? Maybe I should learn everything I need to know about Windows networking and virtualization. Am I really interested in the networking side? And you're doing Cisco type things, so maybe that one applies to you. I want to know more about switching. I want to know about routing. How do the big companies set up these links? How do you do internet connectivity? Maybe you want to get out of school and go work for an ISP. They need people that understand Linux and that understand BGP and that understand routing and switching technologies. Maybe your desire is to do something else. Cisco, you can also do things like the Cisco security. You could do Cisco routing and switching, do Cisco, the higher end, the CCIEs even. You may be in a situation where you're able to get your CCIE, which is an extremely high-level certification in Cisco, but about the time you're getting out of college. That makes you extremely marketable. The basic entry-level certifications like A+ are good because you're going to be asked to do some entry-level jobs when you get out of high school or when you get out of college. You got to start at the bottom. That's just the nature of the beast. And it's going to be kind of frustrating to you because you already got your A+, and you're going up against people in a job scenario, maybe for a help desk position, that don't have any certifications. That just helps you, though. But if you're getting Cisco, you may even know more than that. What you don't want to get into, and you want to be very careful about, is knowing or explaining to people that you know more than the job that you're applying for. This is something that comes up a lot. Somebody mentioned to me in the chat room, I now have 8 certifications. I'm not even out of college yet. And I kind of had to explain to them, make sure you don't tell the people you're interviewing with that you have 8 certifications. They're like, what are you talking about? I got 8 certifications. Of course I'm going to tell them that I have 8 certifications. And the problem is they're looking for somebody in the help desk. They're looking for entry level. And with 8 certifications, you would be able to move up quickly. But they don't want to hire somebody who's going to be bored, is going to leave in 3 months. The companies make a significant investment in time and in training and in money and in benefits when they hire somebody. So you also don't want to be in a position where they think they're hiring somebody who's way overqualified for this entry-level position. There's an interesting balancing act there. Somebody who's been a hiring manager before, of finding just the right fit for what you're going to do. So just keep that in mind. I say you should absolutely get those 8 certifications or work towards the things you want to do. Just be careful about how you structure that when you start presenting those things towards a prospective employer. Is there a particular area that you think you're leaning more towards than another?
Well, I'm starting for I want to go for my network administration associate's degree in college here.
Great.
But I was looking for jobs, and I've got a few interviews, but they're looking for more or less experience, and that's where I have the hard part to do. I don't have experience, but I have the certification.
Yep, and you actually have two of the three things that most employers are looking for. Most employers are looking for experience. Some people will say experience is the one that is the most important thing you could possibly have. And to some degree, that's probably correct. But there's that catch-22 of you haven't had a job to get the experience, but they won't give you a job unless you have the experience. So wait, what are you talking about? That becomes a challenge. We'll come back to that. The other two things are certification, some type of practical knowledge about the technology, or something that you could say, yes, I at least completed this level of a certification, is something that's useful to have. And the other thing, I mentioned those three things: experience, the certifications, and then formal education. If you're going to get a degree in network administration, then you're going to have this formal education behind you. You have a degree, either a technical degree, a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree under your belt. It took you a year or 2 years or a certain amount of time to get that degree. It's important to have that degree as well, not only because employers like to have somebody who has the degree, but it also, and I don't mean this in a bad way, because I have a management degree. I have a business management degree, and there's no one in this room for me to manage. So, but they like to know that you're trainable. So it's kind of a bad way to say it, but you went through this multiple semesters of training and you got through it. So certainly if we bring you into this organization, we can train you up, because they don't want to keep you entry level. They want you to also grow within the organization. They spend a lot of time putting together processes and trainings to get you out of that entry level and on to the next thing that you're going to do, which in your case probably would be networking. So that's another thing to think about. Now, let's go back to the original question you asked, which was about experience. If you don't have a job to get experience, how are you supposed to get experience? I worked in a video rental store. That was once upon a time when we actually had tapes that you had to give to someone to watch a movie. So this physical media was rented to people and then they would bring it back. So I worked behind a counter. That's not good experience to get a technical job. It's a great experience to get a retail job. So that wasn't useful to me from an experience perspective. But if you can find someone you know, and obviously in a school or university setting, there's actually an opportunity for you to join groups of people that do technology. Maybe it's not something that's at your school level, but maybe locally there's a technology group, and maybe it's a user group. Certainly Cisco user groups are everywhere. It would absolutely behoove you to go to some Cisco user group meetings. If you're into Microsoft, find one of those Microsoft user group meetings. There's also organizations that are kind of generic technology organizations. Go to those organizations, not because you're interested necessarily in hearing the people that are speaking, because they do have great speakers and you can, of course, learn a lot from them. But the people in the room are people that already have those jobs, that know Cisco, that are trying to find people. And it is remarkable once you get a relationship with somebody. They see you at these meetings all the time. You ask them questions. You're able to find out, tell me more about what you do. Oh, you're at that organization. How's your network set up? Because I'm in college and I'm really looking forward to getting a job in networking. Where do you see your network changing? Ask them, just ask questions. You never even have to say anything. Just keep asking questions about their network. How is it set up? When you have, how's your redundancy set up with your switches? We just learned in Cisco about using this type of redundancy protocol. Do you use that in your environment? How does this practical world fit with the things that I've been learning? They will be more than happy to talk to you. And remarkably enough, it's really hard to find people to hire right now in technology. As crazy as that sounds, entry level, it's relatively easy, but once you get past that, it's a little bit harder. So in the case of not having experience, the relationships you build can be just as valuable as that, because they become to know you and can trust you a lot more with the things that they're doing. The other thing I might recommend from an experience perspective is to find organizations that need volunteers. And I'm going to bring this up. I I Instapapered something this month because I thought this might come up. It was something that came up in the chat, and I know nothing about this organization or this website and how it works, but I did a simple search on this website and found nonprofits in my area that need volunteers to do computer things. And the website is volunteermatch.org. Maybe somebody in the chat room can tell me it's good, it's bad, or indifferent. But there was, I'm in the state capitol, there was an organization that handles mental health challenges that is a private group. So it's privately funded. They're not a government agency, I don't believe. And they needed volunteers to help with their computers. There's a great example of how you can first know people in the organization, know people locally. And they say in the list, we don't care if you have experience in this. We've got other people here, but we need warm bodies to help us with this, to set up machines, to plug things in. And you've gone through your A+, you have certain knowledge that maybe they don't have. So this might be another good example of practical experience. This is real experience. There's generally no money in this type of thing, but that's okay. You're actually helping an organization that needs it. That may be enough payment in itself. But it's something you can put on a resume. You can put on the curriculum vitae that says, I spent 6 months with this organization and was able to do these things with them, configure, set up, deploy, or whatever it happened to be. So there's a couple of ideas anyway to maybe get you down the road of some of those things. Does it make sense anyway?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. That helps out a lot too.
I think you're on the right track. You've already got a ton of knowledge under your belt, and in high school, you've got the right idea with what you want to do with the networking. I love the networking field. There's so much you're able to do with it. There's not enough people in it, so you've got the right idea of the technology you'd like to follow. I think you're going to do fine. And if other questions come up, just send me an email. We can always talk that way as well.
Alrighty, thank you, Professor.
Thanks for calling. It's pretty exciting, isn't it, to think about what's next? I'm an old guy. I got no hair. I got no. I'm not ready to go into the next big thing. I'm ready to stick with the thing that I got. You get to that part of it. Think about the folks that are coming out of school now and the things they're going to run into. They're getting into cloud computing. They're now in the middle of all the virtualization. What's the next steps for them? It's remarkable how much has changed in such a very short period of time with those pieces. For those of you that want to call in, we got 6 minutes left on the call-in lines. Why not use them and be able to get that? So, question that came up earlier before I got that. Yes, if you're a spouse of a military, that absolutely applies to the discounts. Just so you know, for those pieces, let me scroll down some more. Et cetera, et cetera. Oh, the disk part command. You're right. I did not do the disk part command. Let's see if we can mess that up. Let's see if we can screw around with the disk part command. I don't know that I have the disk space for it. Let's see if I do. I have a machine running that I will need to shut down. Maybe we can get some of that going on this piece as well. Let me flip through, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That whole technical experience giving you an edge over someone who doesn't, it just depends on who you're talking to. I think most of the time, I think it does, but not all the time. And if you have some interesting projects you've worked on, that can help as well. And quite honestly, the fourth thing I did mention it, but I didn't mention it as a fourth thing, but who you know. It's always said it's not what you know, it's who you know. Yeah, it is. It's who you know. And I think I talked a little bit more about that. Everybody's making fun of the way I'm talking about video stores. Yes, it was good times. That was a great job because I could watch as many videos as I wanted for free. That was fantastic. That was really the time. Now you don't even have that anymore. I'd have to go work for Netflix or something. It doesn't work that way. I'm happy paying my flat fee for Netflix. I think that's the way we should do it and get that going. And there is redundancy with switches. Okay, let me see if I can mess up the my virtual machine here and get this this running. I don't know that I'll be able to. So I'm just going to talk over this while I kind of set it up on the back side of these pieces. Did I cut you off, Malcolm? I did not mean to cut you off. I'm very sorry. But you're welcome to call in if you have a question. Let's go to, did I shut down this virtual machine? I need to shut down the virtual machine I'm running, which you can't see, but you will. Shut it down so I can add a drive to it. There you heard Windows shutting down there. Okay. And in my settings, let's see if I can screw this one up really well. I'm in this virtual machine. It's my auxiliary control center, which is in a different part of Atlantis. Under storage, got a drive here. I don't know why I'm at an IDE drive. So if you've got these options underneath, add a new attachment to the tree, add a controller, remove the controller. I would like to add a new drive to this SATA controller. The IDE is my CD-ROM. I have Windows 7 CD-ROM in there. So I have this SATA controller. I want to add a drive. Let's add a hard disk. I want to create a new one. It's going to be a very small one. You have a lot of different formats you can use for this. If you wanted to be one that's very compatible with everything, you would choose a VHD, a virtual hard disk. That VHD is a standard that can be read by practically everything: Windows, VirtualBox, the VMware. Everybody reads that standard. If you're really looking at a very specific standard like the VirtualBox, Parallels, QEMU, there's other virtualization software. We're going to do VHD. I'm going to do a fixed sized VHD. And hold on a moment. Fixed size VHD. And do I have, I've got to figure out how much drive space I have. I may not be able to do as much as I want to do. Let's see. Yeah, we got some room. We got a little bit of room here. So let's do this. VHD. Let's do a fixed size. I'm just going to do a couple of gig though. No, not 25. Let's just do 2. I'm just going to nuke it after this. So this is study group disk. And create. Now it goes to the process. It's relatively small. It's on an SSD, so that should be created relatively quickly. And there it is. It's now on here. Let's click OK, and let's restart this computer. Have it boot up. It's going to complain that I didn't load some things, but that's okay. It's just fine. And it starts up Windows. See, isn't that nice to have the Windows getting there? Okay.
90 seconds.
Oh, so I think the 90 seconds things is kind of a problem. Sorry for those of you that called in. Didn't get to it fast enough. We'll go to 813 real quick. 813 area code. Are you there? And what's your question?
Hi, James. This is Ty.
Hi, Ty. You have about 60 seconds before you get cut off, so maybe you can throw the question out, and I can take you after it hangs up on you.
Okay. I've been a technician for about
60
years. I got out of it after the 2008 economic collapse.
Okay.
And I'm just now getting back into it. I'm studying on, for the A+ certification, and I've managed to get a phone interview with a Stream that does support for Dell support, which is a good thing.
Nice.
And I have very little experience with Windows 7, Windows Vista, Windows 8, 8.1, and wanted to know before my interview, that's probably going to be a question they're going to be asking me, how can I go ahead and talk about this to them, that, I am a good fit and I will be able to do this. And another thing is, how would I be able to learn these different operating systems for specifically
10 seconds.
How's that for getting it right under the wire? There's 4 seconds left. You're going to be hang up, but I will answer it on the stream. I have an answer for you right here, and there it goes. Okay. That's the end of this. I guess you're still on the line. Maybe it keeps you there for just a little bit, but I will answer this on the stream in case it does hang up on you. The quick answer I have for you, for anybody who's trying to learn more Microsoft stuff, is there is the Microsoft Virtual Academy.com. This is a Microsoft site, Microsoft Virtual Academy.com. And they have virtual environments that they set up but they're based around certain technologies. And I haven't even looked at this to see if there's one for Windows 8. There's a migrating from Windows XP to 8.1, Windows 8.1 to Go. Most of these are free. So they're not, of course, enormous in size, but they can really help you if you want to learn Windows 8.1. There's a great course you could go through just to learn Windows 8.1 and what you could learn above and beyond, for instance, Windows XP, and can give you some nice breakdowns. What's new in Windows 8.1 security? So there's a lot of what's new in Windows 8.1. Microsoft wants to tell you this. So they've set up these really nice training courses where you can step through those pieces. That's one option available to you. The other one is maybe you want to run it on your own machine. There are Windows 8.1 evaluation versions, since it's the latest version of the software. You could always install that in a virtual machine and run it locally on your machine. And that would at least give you an idea for look and feel and using it, because I can bet you if you're walking into an environment, that they may be interested in knowing more about Windows 8 knowledge from you. And you can say, oh yeah, use it all the time. Here's how it works. Here's what I found about it. I think what you'll find though, is most organizations are still going to run Windows 7. But I still see some of that changing. I'm walking into environments now where Windows 8's on the desktop. So it's a couple of ideas.
Right, that's what I'm hearing from my friends.
Yeah.
I got friends that are in there right now, and they're saying probably about 90% of their calls is Windows 7, but they're still getting some Vista calls and some, 8 calls.
It's interesting. I used to do a lot with Windows desktop work or Windows Server work, and there was a group of people that I used to work with that started their own company that were doing Novell NetWare consulting. And this was when Windows was just,
I remember Novell.
Yeah, Windows was blowing up. Windows was the thing. We were putting in tons of Windows servers, and I said, why are you doing Novell NetWare consulting? I know that's what we did 5 years ago, and you guys were really good at it, but why are you doing that? And he said, because nobody else knows it, and we are killing it.
Well,
we can ask whatever money we want because these systems aren't easily moved. I thought, okay, he's got a point. So yeah, knowing the old stuff and knowing the new stuff can actually gain you some value with other people, because they don't have people in place to know the old stuff and know the new stuff. So that may be that is 10% of calls. Oh yeah, I'll take those. Just send those over to me. I'll be able to work for you. That may be your foot in the door.
Right. Excellent information.
Thanks for calling. You were definitely the last one, because now it's hung up on everyone else. But thanks for calling and putting that in too.
Thanks. Appreciate you, James.
Good luck. Let us know how that job job goes. I'd love to hear.
I definitely will.
Take care. The thing that I run into with job, because I used to do a lot of hiring, used to do a lot of sitting down with somebody and having the conversation with them, is I always wanted to find out more about how they thought about things or how they worked with things. It's not always about what you know, but how you go through the process of working and working with other people. The one thing I can tell you for sure is that if you are not telling the truth in a meeting like that, you're in an interview and you're not truthful, we absolutely know that that's what's going on. It's almost ridiculous how easy that is to get that going. I think that whenever I started working and interviewing people, I would kind of change up the questions from time to time just to see what kind of responses I get. If you've never done it, you can tell pretty quickly. And there's nothing wrong in an interview with saying, "Oh, I have no idea how to do that. How would I? I have no idea what that is, but I have done something similar along those lines." Something like that might be a good place to go with those pieces. So let's see if we can set up some partitions on this. Our machine is rebooted. I'm back in my Windows environment. There should be another disk there. So let's see if there is. I'm going to bring up a CMD and I'm going to run it as administrator, because you have to run as administrator. to be able to do that piece. We're going to see if I'm running as administrator. It says, yes. Are you sure you want to do that? I do. Thank you. User account control. Let's see what options we have available to work with these pieces. So as I mentioned, the fdisk command may still, let's see, is it even there anymore? Nope. Sorry. So you folks that know the fdisk, not there. Can't do anything with that. Let's try a disk part. That's what you want. Now you can do disk part to other machines as well. This command line functionality is very powerful. We're just going to be on this local machine. Indeed, it tells me this is the auxiliary control center machine. That's what I want. Now, one of the things you can't do in your performance-based questions on the A+ exam or any of the exams is just do what I just did, which is do a question mark or / question mark to be able to know more about what you're trying to do. You have to know the commands. They're not going to give you these things. So for this particular command, I don't know that they're going to go into a lot of detail. I don't recall seeing any requirements to know how to set up, partition, configure, format a drive from disk part. But it's a good thing to know. So the list command is the one where we want to figure out what's on this machine. So a lot of the ways you list out all of the disks that are there. Let's list disk. So we have a few here. I have disk 0. That is probably the one I'm running right now because it's, or the disk 1 rather is one I'm running right now. Why is there no free space on that? I think that's a disk part problem. There's a 10 meg. This happens to be probably the second disk I have there. I don't have any virtual disks on here. But the disk selection, now that we know what disks are there, we can select. Can I tab complete there? No, I just put tabs in. So you can select which disk you would like to work with. Well, I know I have this 2 gig disk that I just created. That's disk 0. So I can select disk 0. Did I spell that right? Disk 0 is now the selected disk. So you have to kind of set your focus on what you would like to select. And then you could do things like create partitions around those. I think that's the part where most people run into, what do I do first? What do I do next? If you don't select a disk, it's not going to allow you to go further than that. There is a create command for creating partitions. There it is. Create a volume, partition, or virtual disk. That'll be our next step to create that piece. Sorry, my Zoom is difficult to work with. In the create, you've got create partition. Notice how you can just step along. And now you've got other options. Do I create an EFI system partition? Do I create an extended partition? Do I create a logical drive? Is it a Microsoft reserve partition? Or is it a primary partition? So create partition. I'm going to do a primary partition on that disk because there's no partitions on the disk right now. Great. That's what I want to do. Let's see. Does it let me just create the partition primary and then prompt me? No, just said, yep, here you go. Now I could have put in all of those other options they had here for me, which was create it with a certain size, certain type. It does all of the defaults for the other piece. So if I, let's do a list and get the partition for, is it going to do disk 1? I should, because that's our disk 0, because that's what I'm on. Okay, create a partition 1. It's primary partition. Just use the full size of the disk. Great. That sounds good to me. Let's format. What are my options for formatting? Do I do help format? Do I really have to type help format? You really do in here. Mixes it up. Formatting obviously has so many different options available. I can do FAT32, NTFS. I can do the configurations that I like to use. What label would I like to use for the volume labels? A quick format or a big format or a standard format? Those are the pieces. Notice that if no file system is given, use the default file system. If you don't specify, it tells you what the options are for that. What if I just do a format? What happens? I don't get to do this enough. Done. Type format and go. That's formatted. Now, what we could do at the same time while this is going on, let's go into our control panel, administrative tools. You've got your computer management inside of this and disk management inside of that. So notice we've got this disk 0. This is the one I just worked on. Disk 0. It's a 2 gig NTFS, but there's no There's no letter connected with it. That was the other thing that you called in about, is you wanted a letter associated with that. Since we already have the focus for that particular drive, let's see if I can get to it. Keep all these on the screen at one time and keep it in a resolution that we can all see. Now we want to assign letter H. Boom, put it right in there. There's letter H. So there you go. There's a good example of using disk part, selecting a disk, formatting it, or partitioning it, formatting it, and assigning a letter to it. And it can all be done inside of disk part. All the things that you would normally be able to do inside of the disk manager, it's right there. Makes it easy for that piece. I think that you'll get very little detailed questions about disk part on your exam, I would expect. The disk part, as you can see, it's remarkably involved. The good things to know, though, is the process. If you get a blank drive with nothing on it, you have to partition it, you have to format it, and you have to give it a drive letter if the format doesn't do that. So you have to go through those 3 steps regardless. Even if you have a drive that has some extra space on the end, you can partition that. You can format it. You can add a drive letter to it. So there's ways you can mess around with that. And like me, I hardly use the disk part command. Go into it, make a partition, format it. What happened? Why did it choose NTFS? Remove the partition, create a new one, make it FAT32. How can I change the size of it and make it a different size? I don't think you're going to get questions that are quite that involved in the exam, but the process is certainly good to know. And it's good to know what the disk part command does. And after doing this, I think we all have a pretty good idea of what disk part does. So that's something anyway. At least we've gone through the process of knowing what to do with those pieces. So for those of you that are listening to the audio replay, you may want to hop over to the video side and look at the replays of that. So I tried to fit them all in there and get those pieces going. Okay, we've been going at this for 2 hours and 12 minutes, so it's about time that my voice would like to shut this down. My green tea is quickly, it's a little too cold at this point. Get that piece going. What other things month? There were a number of topics we weren't able to go through. Next month, you can look for us to talk about another command prompt we're going to go through next month. We're going to talk about twisted pair, shielded twisted pair. We're going to talk about non-twisted pairs. How about that one? Don't really hear about that one on the exam very much, non-twisted pairs. We did some of the mobile stuff today. I have others, file systems and things to talk about. File systems themselves are an interesting conversation. We just formatted NTFS. Why didn't we do FAT32? What value would have been there if we had formatted that partition as FAT32? Why, when you purchase an external drive and plug it in, why is it always formatted with FAT32? Those are the nice things that would be good to know there as well. I'll talk about that next month. We have more content to be able to work with those. Thanks everybody for sticking in there. We just hung out for well over 2 hours this time. But if you have questions in the meantime, things you'd like to know, ideas and things that you might want to see on the next study group, absolutely send me an email. I'm really interested in keeping these. And as you can see, I just stick everything in an Instapaper, in some type of log that I have. I try to put everything away in something that I can use because questions come up all the time. You folks were fantastic about sending me and calling in. I think that's one of the greatest parts about this is that I get to answer your questions that way. So I'm now going to find some lunch, sit back. I'll do some video editing. I expect to have the replay up within 24 hours, maybe as early as tonight. And we will absolutely see you next time on the study group. Thanks, everyone.